Hello, 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 and welcome to the Progress Report. I'm your host, Dion Sage, and let me start off by saying, Happy Pride, baby! It is Pride Month, the entire month, but also I'm also going to decree and declare this also Black Month as well, because we have a lot of history that's going on in it. But for all my gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, non binary, and all of the other letters that we represent in all of our sexuality, sexual identities, queer people everywhere. I want to say happy Pride Month. It's been a very long year. It really has been a very long year. So all I'm going to say is today, this month, let your freak flag fly and let us have a good time. With all that said, it is going to be a wonderful week for the Progress channel. We are going to be doing a lot of things this week. We're going to be in Cranston. My good friend Taylor Sage is going to be in Cranston at the flag raising in Cranston. He's speaking. I will be there out of support. And then this week on Friday, guess what? Yeah, Dion Sage is going to be hosting, emceeing alongside with the City of Providence, the flag raising in the City of Providence. My home city, like where I was born and raised and bred, you know what I mean? Like, it was almost a rap song I was going on, born and raised and bred, I was about to hit you off with a little bit of piece from the Notebook, but, y'all are not ready for that. Seriously, you're not ready for that. You will be very bored, and you will tell me, Dion, don't ever do that in your life again. But with that, all that said, we have a wonderful show. Two of the speakers that are going to be there on Friday are here tonight. But also, I like to call one my little sister, and I just adopted this other one as my baby brother. Okay? Yes, I love to put my arms around people and love on them and all that stuff. If you don't like it, oh well, because I'm full of nothing but love. Anyway, with all this said, again, we have a very good show for you. We have my good friend, BLM Executive Director, Harrison Tuttle here, and Senator Tiara Mack. She's we might as well get her a paycheck. Every time I look up, she's here. We might as well just cut her a check, But I know she wouldn't take any monetary from me. She just wants my support because I'm hey. Anyway, with that said, again, I'm excited. I'm really excited. A little zealous for the show today because I know it's going to be a great conversation. It was already a great conversation. But before I get to that, I just want to say to all of you out there that are still plagued with homophobia, transphobia, and any other phobia, blackophobia, uh, womanophobia, uh, uh, intelligenceophobia, I say to you for the rest of the month, please shut the hell up. With that said, I like to invite my good friend, I like to call him baby brother. I know he's gonna get sick of that at some point. He's like, I'm a grown man. I got more facial hair than you do, Dion. Try it. Anyway, my good friend Harrison Tuttle.
What's up, Dion? How are you?
I'm good, Harrison. How are you doing?
I am so happy to be here as a friend and not a guest, and
Yeah,
apparently as a brother.
as a brother, I know my little brothers are probably watching and they're a little jealous right now. Isaiah, Dwayne, Tyler. Uh, Wait, see, I got my brothers' names. Oh, Desmond and all you, my little brothers. I love you guys. Don't do that. You guys know I'm getting old. Your brother's about to be 34 this month in exactly 27 days. I'm getting old, guys. Okay, so charge it to my head, not my heart. But I like to adopt other little brothers. This is my little brother right here. Okay, embrace him, guys. But anyway, Harrison, how are you doing out there?
Yeah, I'm good. The legislative session is coming to an end, and it's really crazy. Pushing for a lot of the bills right now, such as the legalization of marijuana in an equitable way, as well as Leobor, and so it's really busy.
So let's talk about that. First I'm going to start with Leobor, and then I want to go into the legalization of marijuana with you for a second because Leobor is just some bullshit. I'm just going to frankly say it. I'm sorry to my church family out there. I know, but that's the only word that describes. There's no intelligent word for me to describe it. For police officers to have a bill of rights still in the state. Do you think that it's going to be repealed? Do you think that there's a likely chance of that happening? If not, what are some of the struggles that's stopping that?
Well, the hope is that it is repealed. We're working really hard. Everyone who's involved is working really hard for it to be repealed. But ultimately, we can participate in testimony. We over 75 people testified. There are postcards being sent out. There are emails being sent out. There's social media presence. And ultimately now it comes down to the members of the Judiciary Committee to pass this for a vote. But we'll see. There is another bill that is more for a reform of Leobor. But like you said, Dion, I mean, there's really no need to have Leobor at all. It's something that our surrounding states don't have. It's something that dilutes accountability, and it's really something that's unacceptable here in the state.
You know, it's crazy because I have people in my family that are part of law enforcement at some branch. I have an uncle that's a state trooper. I have some family members that are police officers at city and town levels, as well as in the correctional officer field. And I debate with them quite often. And they are strongly for the Leo Boar. But I always say to them, at the end of the day, when a police officer or a correctional officer approaches a situation, like for example with me, somebody sees me walking in my neighborhood, coming in my house after 2 o'clock in the morning and hanging with some friends. I'm walking into my house from an Uber and someone sees me, or I might be standing outside, just I'm sitting in front of my house and someone who doesn't know me from my neighborhood sees me out there, they call the police. Police don't know who I am or whatever. They already have a lot of protection on them. They already have all these different things, and all I have is myself. So for me, it's like, what protection do I have as a civilian at that point, who I'm sitting in front of my house, maybe in my basketball shorts, flip flops, and a t-shirt?
Yeah, I mean it's really something that only protects officers after they've done something wrong, and there is a hesitancy
It's not
from
to protect. It's not to protect you or I if we've done something wrong after we've done something wrong.
right.
And we can't. They can't say public defenders because that's a load of that's another story, another.
Well, it all goes back to like, I can't remember who said it, but somebody said it takes years or extended amount of time to get your degree as a license to practice as a lawyer, and it takes an extremely short amount of time to become a police officer and have the authority to kill someone,
I believe
right?
you and I think myself, myself, and Justice Gaines spoke about that during the George Floyd trial. But not the George Floyd trial. We got to, and that was my mistake. I'm sorry. That's not the George. That's the Derek Chauvin trial. During the Derek Chauvin trial, um, we spoke about that. We spoke about how. I just lost my whole train of thought because I made that whole mistake. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, completely right. And it was definitely justice. But like that, it's true. Like we really need to examine our police as a whole. And Tiara, who will come on the show later, Beth said it when she said that if we can't get this passed after this summer's protest, then it really shows where we are in this state. So um, that's
Again, like I said to my uncle the other day, we just got plantations.
yeah,
Plantations.
yeah.
Off the name of the state. I mean, we're the only state in the Texas didn't even have Texas and Dallas plantations on it, but here, good old Rhode Island Providence plantations on a lot of state documents. So the other piece of legislation you were speaking about was the legalization of marijuana.
Mm.
Um, I'm going to give you my entire position. I'm all for the legalization of marijuana. However, once we legalize marijuana, we need to expunge records of every person that has any type of marijuana charge on them. I don't care if they have other charges on there, but if it comes down to marijuana, we're legalizing marijuana, we have to backtrack because people have not been able to get jobs. People have not been able to live their lives and make a livable wage because they have something as simple as a half an ounce on their possession or on their right. And I believe legalize marijuana, but also you have to fix those wrongs. And that's what I said. But where are we right now in the state on legalizing recreational marijuana?
Yeah, and before I touch on that, that's one of our main things, right? If you're going to legalize marijuana, then you have to decriminalize the people and the people affected, which is obviously disproportionately, Black and brown communities, stemming back all the way from the war on drugs. And so that's one of the main things, right? If we're going to legalize marijuana, then we need to expunge all the records, and not only do that, but also when those licenses are handed out, make sure that it is equitable and that people in our communities are the first one to get those licenses. Number two, regarding where we are, very much like Leobor, it's up in the air. We've got maybe 3 or 4 weeks, tops left in this kind of legislative session, and the 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 vibe that I'm getting is that uh, it's very much something that the people who would have to give it a green light kind of want to bypass it into next session. And so I know the governor has a plan on legalizing marijuana. It's not exactly as progressive as I would want it, with the idea that what we would really want to do is either meet the bar that New York set or exceed that bar.
Mm.
And that's really the main thing. And obviously, the expungement of all records is like first and foremost. Like that needs to happen.
It needs to happen. I mean, for me, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, we're going to legalize marijuana, but these people who predate this, we're going to still say they have a charge on them. We're going to still say they have this record on them uh, uh, moving forward. I think that's bull.
And we should really start to examine the criminalization of drugs themselves, and how
Yes.
addiction and drug use is viewed as more of a crime and not a mental health issue. Um, and that's really what we need to start focusing on.
Harrison, I'm going to say this, and it's crazy because we've had a lot of violence in the city of Providence lately, and I was debating with guns right activists, and don't get me wrong, do we need legislation on guns rights, and that's another conversation for another day. Do we need legislation around drugs? Yes, we do, but we're not creating healthy legislation around mental health. That's the main issue right there. When I see a gun violence, when I see gun violence, when I see drug abuse, when I see child any type of abuse, period, or anything like that, I immediately my mind it's mental. It's a mental health issue.
Yeah, you're totally right. Especially there was a report that came out that mental health is up 92% in this state. And we know the effects that mental health before the pandemic had on
Right.
people. Now, with the pandemic and people not having homes, not having the access to the basic necessities, it is only going to lead to a more downward path of mental health. And quite frankly, we really need to address that now and have that in the forefront of our minds when going into electing officials here in the state.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. On a lighter note, June is known as Pride Month, and you said something that just rang with me, bro. Like it just rang with me. You said there will be no Black liberation without queer liberation. And then our producer Ken Barber retweeted,
Yeah.
there'll be no queer liberation without Black liberation. Both statements, in my belief, are true. One, I am a Black gay man of color. I am Black gay man of color. That's redundant, but I'm Black, unapologetically Black, unapologetically gay, unapologetically Christian. And the statement that you made was you made that day right before it was during the Dewante Wright protest here at the State House. And you made that statement and then Ken rebutted that. How important right now is it? And this is a heavy, but it's kind of like, but how is it important right now for both the, the Black community and the gay community to come together? And the second question I'm actually and you identify as a straight man, correct?
Hmm.
Straight Black male, straight man of color. What message do you have to straight men of color that look at gay as taboo? And I give the floor to you now. Sorry.
Such a loaded question. I think that uh, being able to advocate for all groups of oppressed or advocate for all oppressed groups is important, no matter what culture or the way people identify or the way people choose to love another person. That is, really number one. And the only way that we can do that is unless all oppressed groups come together and fight against systemic problems, right? And there is such a history of transphobia, homophobia, and specifically it tied to the gay civil rights movement, but the Black civil rights movement, right? When we look at being able to connect those dots, it's very intersectional, right? And to separate those issues would be ahistorical and would be ignorant. And quite frankly, our organization and BLM RI PAC will always stand by the LGBTQI A plus community. And as a straight Black male, like, there is so much history and there's so much negative, stereotypical homophobia and transphobia in our communities that, like, I never understood. And, you know, it's about educating folks. It's about being able to re educate folks on those negative stereotypes and negative, comments that have been associated to, the queer community, right? And so, I will always stand up, and I am absolutely honored to be able to speak this Friday. I get so happy, and I'm
I
honored.
can't wait because I listen. You give me like when you emceed, you give me like you give me life. I'm just hoping like I can MC as well. I have and on top of that, I have the final speech of the other night. I'm like, dang, there's such great speakers,
Yeah.
powerful, impactful speakers, and I have to wrap it up. I might just at the end just say, all right, like pack it up, let's go home, good night. Like
So,
seriously, like,
anyone who did not see, and I know we have to go commercial, but for anyone who did not see Dion's speech at the Dante Wright protest, like I recommend it's on our website. I recommend you watching that because, like, if you had any doubts, Dion, on whether you could perform in front of a live crowd, then you should go watch that video because you got it.
You know what? That was nothing. Let me tell you something, brother. That was nothing but the glory of God. I'm gonna say that, just plain and simple. Not to get too deep or anything, but that was nothing but the glory of God. And at the end of the day, like for me, um, things that needed to be said. I grew up right here in Providence, and again, I do. I see the mothers crying. I hear them. I hear them. Period. In my spirit, I hear them. Physically and in my spirit, I see them cry. The physical tears that they cry. And for me, it's just enough's enough. At some point, enough has to be enough. When, especially when it comes to those who have sworn to serve and protect, enough has to be enough. Period. When they talk, and don't get me wrong, it grieves my spirit also when a shooting happens, a senseless shooting happens between rival gangs or rival sides or whatever, or whatever, however the media wants to spin it. That does grieve my spirit. But what really gets me upset is when the people that we're supposed to report to those crimes that happen to us, that when we're violated, they're the ones that also violate us at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that bothers me. That makes it worse.
Right.
Period. So when that day, I mean, there was just so many great speakers, but I don't want to get too deep into it. But like, thank you for your compliment. I don't ever think I'm one of those great speakers like good. But thank you. I know we have to go to commercial. I just have to ask you, how's mom doing?
My mom?
Yes, your mom, of course.
Oh, yeah, my mom's doing awesome. She had to remove she had to remove like over like 100 people because a bunch of political people were stalking her account. So she had to remove everybody. But
let me make this very clear. Hold on, let me make this very clear. Hold up. Y'all better not mess with Mama Tuttle. I'm gonna tell y'all that right now. Y'all gonna see me take the earrings out, the nails off, and the heels will come off, baby. Y'all better leave Mama Tuttle alone. I know she watching. We got your back, Mama Tuttle. Don't worry. We'll pull up, roll up. That's it.
right.
With that said, we have to go to commercial. Unfortunately. Look. Harris is like, yeah, let's go, roll up. I see that. Just collar real quick. But no, like in seriousness, y'all leave Mama Tuttle alone. But we have to go to commercial. We'll be right back, I promise you. When we come back, we'll be hearing from Senator Tiara Mack.
Pride Month is almost here. Join us June 4th at 5 p.m. at Biltmore Park in Providence, Rhode Island, as the Progress Channel hosts a celebration of community rally and Pride flag-raising ceremony. emceed by our very own Dion Sage, speakers will include Mayor Alorza, State Senator Tiara Mack, BLM RIPAC Executive Director Harrison Tuttle, activist Jaden Vieira, Taylor Neptune, and performances by Elijah Dickinson and much more.
Kikipedia, your online guide to LGBTQ plus bars, clubs, and events. Find all the tea on your local gay bars. Home of the internet's most comprehensive digital drag show and virtual event guide. Visit kikipedia.app or dragstreams.com now!
Hello and welcome back, everyone. I hope you went and grabbed yourself a glass of wine because this next guest, I know she loves a good glass of wine. Her and I have a conversation. She had, and I'm gonna brag a little bit. Was able to work on her campaign, get out there and knock on doors with her, and even without her. And I've watched this young woman turn people's mind, change people's mind. Heck, she changed my own grandmother's mind. Something I can't do. Anyway, I'm so excited to have her. Y'all know I'm a big fanboy. And I like to call her my little sister, the one, the only Senator Tiara Mack.
Hi, big bro.
Hi.
How are you, Dion?
I'm liking the fresh cut. Fresh cut.
Thank you. Yes, star of the show.
Yeah, so but I'm working on getting the product in my hair, so the curls. So when I do the fade again, 0 to 3, how I nice, with the high top, the curls are gonna come in. But
yeah, I think at this length I can do some nice waves. I really need to get someone to give me a good wave cap recipe.
Oh, you need a wave cap recipe? You should talk to Taylor Neptune. His waves, literally, I get seasick from looking at his waves.
Yes, I was on this show on Friday, so I will text him and be like, "Yo, my dude, why didn't you tell me about your wave game?"
Let me tell you. But you know what and I'm gonna say this quickly about black hair because it's been a very long time since industries have gotten it right with black hair care products. There are so many black hair care products out there now for curls and coils and waves because our hair is coily, our hair is wavy, our hair is curly. Deal with it, and so I'm thankful for that. But you have been busy, young lady. Oh, did everything freeze? I think I'm frozen. So Tiara's frozen. I'm not sure if she can hear me. Well, while waiting for Senator Mack to get back to us, I'm just gonna bring Harrison in back and for a little bit until we can get Senator Mack in, if that's okay.
That works.
Works.
Hello.
Hey, Harrison, you're back. Hey.
What's good?
So, dang, I was ready to ask Senator Mack a question.
Yeah.
And that had happened. We got a little disconnected. It could be, but you know what, guys, that's what happens. For those of you who have been working from home for the past year and a half, you know that sometimes our Wi-Fi's mess up, our internet messes up, and all of those things mess up. But it happens. Harrison.
Yes.
Today, actually, I'm gonna go back up. Today marks the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa massacre, where mobs of white citizens, many were armed by the city officials, attacked members of Greenwood community and burned 35 blocks of the community, killing upwards to 300 people. This is very rarely talked about, and it is I think it's critical. I believe it's very critical to our history. Because you just don't have places like Tulsa. You talk about South Carolina, where that at all something similar had happened. How do we change that?
Yeah, I think that we really have to look at our education system, and we have to look at where history is being primarily taught, with understanding that not every person is going to be as politically educated as, maybe us, right? And that's okay, because, it's the role of the education system to just simply tell the way history is. And I know that a bill was just passed, that it must be a requirement for African American history to be taught, and that's a great step in the right. That's a great step in the direction. But we must really know what is in that curriculum to do justice for our people, because our people's history has been erased, which has caused a lot of our problems in our communities with, like, who are we? Where do we come from? Like,
No, and it's funny. It's just that a lot of our history has been erased. Excuse me. I ended up having a steak sandwich right before we came in, so like that, just finally like, oh, how you doing? I'm here. I'm still here. But I was talking about Pride with uh, one of the club owners here in Providence, and we were talking about Pride. The club owner and I, the club owner asked me a question about Juneteenth, because June 19th is coming up. And I said, I believe that now, the third Saturday, now that Juneteenth is an official holiday here in Rhode Island, that it should be reserved, the third Saturday should be reserved for only Juneteenth festivities. Pride should find another weekend. Well, there's been a lot of pushback about that, because of the fact that they said, well, Pride was here first. And I said, well, here's the thing. Um, a lot of history when it comes to black and brown folks has been erased from this, has been completely whitewashed, not written down. Um, if you really think about it, we even think about the like the early years of writing, and songs, and even many gospel songs have white writers, but they were actually written by and sang by and composed by former slaves. So with I think that, especially when it comes to history, like history class, we should not just tell about the winners, but we should also tell about those who were losing at the time. If you know what I mean.
well, I hate that phrase, to be honest. The
I hate
winners.
that phrase too, and I
I,
hate that phrase too. That I hate it too. I didn't have anything better. I couldn't figure out anything better to say in my head.
I
Give me
think
something better. Give me
I
something little better.
term winners and losers should be redefined as the exploiters and the exploited,
Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
and colonializer or the colonialized, right? Because in history, we've been taught that the quote losers have been the people that have been uh, at the hand, like, have been basically killed, and that, as in, like, it's a game of football and everyone starts at zero. Like, no, like, that's not what happened. That's not what settler colonialism is. So yeah, I mean, and that's another thing, right? Because that's what we were taught in high school, that there are winners and that there are losers. So
Exactly.
we really must look at our education system, and I don't know if it's going to happen, because I don't know who's going to be on that committee to be able to determine what exactly is in our history classes. And is the history classes going to follow still the history books that have been issued for decades? Or is it going to be, I don't know, like Fred Hampton? Is Fred Hampton going to be allowed in the classroom? I doubt it. So, like,
Should
where
be.
do we thread that line?
Really let Malcolm X in the classroom and Marcus Garvey in the classroom. But so Harrison, I believe we got Senator Tiara Mack back. Thank you for jumping right in there. But we're gonna jump right to Senator Tiara Mack, because I have some questions. I got a couple of bones to pick with her. You know. So Tiara,
I do. Sorry, Mercury grade is like your internet will not work.
oh well, it happens. It happens. We all understand, especially like during, and nobody's internet went out during this time of COVID. then I don't know what really happened. You must have that suit. You must be Bill Gates.
Right.
Simple as that. But happy Pride. Let me say
Happy
that too. Happy Pride. I'm excited for this Pride Month. Even though we don't have a Pride celebration in Providence, there's going to be one in Newport. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm pretty excited about the flag raising, which I'll be hearing you speak at later this week. I'm truly excited about that. Um, let's go in. Let's go in. So Harrison talked about the police officer Bill of Rights, law enforcement Bill of Rights bill. Where do you stand on that?
I am in the team of full repeal of Leobor. For a lot of reasons. We are one of 15 states that have it. It is way too many protections for a field of work that does not need protections, and it inherently harms vulnerable Black, Brown, and queer communities in our urban core.
Hmm. I think that right there is enough said about why you shouldn't support it. Period. That's the short and sweet. And then also we talked about the legalization of marijuana. Where do you stand on the legalization of marijuana?
I am fully on board with the legalization of marijuana that also takes into account that we need radical investments in our justice system, and we need to be prioritizing reparations to communities that have been inherently harmed by the war on drugs.
You're absolutely right. You know, when I sit there and think about like how many people that I know personally that have records on them for selling a dime bag, you know, it's just it's bull. It's a load of bull. Um, so I'm gonna talk about this quick with you, and this is a kind of curveball. It wasn't on the sheet, but um, there was long discussion about the attire down at the state house, and I can't remember if it was the House Representative or the Senate, but either or, there was a long discussion about the attire of representatives and or senators. Um, you stood on the side that we should be able to wear whatever we want to. Now, the question is not, I don't disagree with you. You should be able to wear what you want to wear on the floor. The question that many people ask that are opposed to it, and I have to ask this question, is why take up so much time when there's other things that could have been discussed during that time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's about how we enter those spaces. For way too long, someone that comes into a space like me, openly queer, visibly Black, visibly young, who is already struggling to assimilate to a world that privileges white people, privileges people who are older, and privileges men. I have to try that much harder to quote unquote blend in. I don't know about y'all, but I am not a fan of blending in, and I'm not a fan of rules. So any rule that tells me that I have to look like the status quo ignores all of the experiences that I have to bring in. Also, it's highly inaccessible. I have talked to many constituents who are literally terrified of going into that big, white, sterile building because they think that everyone is in there in suits and ties and heels. That's not like, that shouldn't be the case, that people in our community feel like they can't access the People's House in Rhode Island, in our capital, because of what they're wearing. We are way past the time where people wear specific clothing in order to access the space. Everyone, regardless if you're wearing jeans, if you're wearing shorts, if you're wearing tennis shoes or flip-flops, you should feel like you have the agency and voice to access that building. And it starts with all of us, including the elected officials, looking exactly like our constituents. If I'm out here dressed like I'm going to a tea party and I'm going to talk about housing as a racial justice issue, housing as an issue of poverty, going to talk with young people about school empowerment, and they see me looking like someone they don't know, they're gonna be like, this girl don't get it. And like, they won't see in my clothes that I am a former low income Black queer woman who knows what it's like to have to struggle.
You know, and I get that because of the fact that, you know, when I was working at the Met High School, one of the things that I appreciated was that we were able to dress how we wanted. You know, as long as it was respectable, as long as I didn't have my pants sagging, you know, my boxers were showing, and you know, I think that as a teacher, that's important. Like personally, I don't like that style personally. But to personally, there's people that, okay, that style works for. But um, you know, I think that was one of the ways I got to identify with my students when they saw me walking with a pair of J's or Air Forces or Timberland, or shoot, on a Friday, if I just wore sweatpants and a pair of Nike tennis shoes, um, with a do-rag on, they were like, wow, oh, that's our teacher? Yeah, that's our teacher. Okay. You know,
Yeah.
that gave a certain respect, because it was like, hey, not just that I'm talking about where I come from, but this is urban dress is an influence on who I am.
Right.
When I get out of work, I don't wear a suit and tie.
Exactly. And it is white supremacy that tells us that we have to wear a suit and a tie in order to look professional. The work that
I think there was a time and place where people walked out the house in pants, a sport jacket, a dress shirt, and tie every day, no matter what they did for work, But nowadays, that's not the case. That's not the case. And here's the other thing: you have U.S. senators and U.S. Congresspeople that don't wear suit jackets and ties to session.
Yeah.
Why
I
should we
mean,
have?
it's the price tag of those clothing. They are highly inaccessible to the working class people. A $500 wool suit, a linen suit, a $200 dress that you can only wear once because it has one pattern, you can't mix and match it. It is highly inaccessible for some people to have the quote unquote professional wardrobe. And as we transition to a community of working class people who are in decision making positions, we should celebrate all of the ways in which people dress. It's also cultural. And I think respect is definitely something that we need to reevaluate as a societal norm. Like I could be wearing cut off denim shorts and still be a respected person in my community. I could be wearing a crop top and flip flops and still be a respected person in my community, able to do the work necessary to advance what the people in my community need. And I think that when people focus too much on the clothes, it really shifts the attention away from what can we get done with our communities.
You're absolutely right. Speaking of community, you represent South Providence, and more specifically Washington Park, where I live.
Yep.
The last time I seen you was we were at the press conference that Mayor Lorza had, for the largest shooting in Providence. Um, uh, you know, and it's crazy. I spoke a little bit of this with Harrison. What I believe the big problem is when we talk about these shootings, but I want to hear it from you. And let me say this: that day there was something you spoke very eloquently. You talked about the problem was. What I really like is you highlighted the impact on legislation that residents of Washington Park have had in recent time, and you talked about the spirit of Washington Park as if you've lived in Washington Park for your entire life, and I really like that you have been able to capture that. And the reason why is because this is very close. You know how I feel, Tiara. You know how I feel about my neighborhood. You
Mm-hmm.
know I feel about Washington Park. You know how I feel about Providence. You know how I feel. There have been so many shootings all over the city. What can we do? What can we do to make our neighborhood stronger and safer without adding more police?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very hard question, and this is going to be, I think it is the most empowering answer and also one of the scariest answers, is that there is no right answer. We know that what is working right now, what is happening right now, does not work. Increasing the police presence, increasing our reliance on police presence does not make our community safer. We right now have communities that have inherent mistrust in our systems because they have placed big polluters in their backyards. They have young people with some of the highest asthma rates in our nation, and they've also seen their schools crumbling for not just one generation, but two and often three generations. So what are we going to do to rebuild that trust? It looks like massive investments in community resources and community structure. first. We need better roads, we need better schools, and we need communities that people feel safe, comfortable, and empowered to live in. And so how do we get there? There's no one right way. Is it continued school takeover and problems with the schools? Is it massive investments in Black and brown teachers, free college education for everyone who lives in Providence and goes to our urban core, elementary, middle schools, and high schools? Does it look like banning big polluters from our communities, repurchasing that land to make it green and sustainable housing? Like, yes. And there's so much more. As someone who is not a lifelong resident of Washington Park, I care deeply about a community that has become mine, that I've chosen to live in this area of Providence and really put in the time and energy to knock doors, get to know the families who really care about where they live and take pride in living in the Washington Park neighborhood, who see the legislative disrespect that comes with the community.
So the Washington Park Neighborhood Association, they just recently pushed for more police. Is against that entire agenda. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a difference for me for adding police and police presence. And my issue, and don't get me wrong, I'm a defund police person, but if the police going to be there, they need to be walking the neighborhood and get to know the people that live in the neighborhood and know where they live, get to know those residents. And the issue for me is that you have, and I'm going to say this last piece, is that in Providence, I watch Providence police officers either sit at the substation or a frigging gas station all day long. All day long. That's it. Running the cars. So if you're there to prevent crime, if you're there to stop crime, how are you doing that from the substation, and how are you doing that from the gas station?
And communities will often do a better job of keeping their community safe. People don't harm neighbors that they know, trust, and respect. People don't make communities where they call home feel unsafe. It just doesn't happen in places where people feel like it is their home, it is their community, and it is people that they consider their people. So we've got to create more environments and more places where people feel like it is their community, they have ownership, and they are empowered to make where they live safe.
I 100% agree, and we're gonna stop on that part because we're gonna bring Harrison back in. We're gonna pick up right there where we're talking about community and community policing and how a community can actually work together to prevent things. But with that said, Tiara, thank you for this one-on-one. Senator Tiara Mack, and I'm going to keep saying Senator Tiara Mack.
Just call me Tiara.
No. Here's the reason why. I notice when it comes to the females elected officials, Ken and I were talking about this. When it comes to female elected officials, they just say their names. They don't say their titles. And for women and a woman of color and a queer woman of color, I'm going to say every time we are public, Senator Tiara Mack, also AKA Dion Sage's little sister. So watch out. Watch out. With that said, go get you guys a drink, go get you guys some popcorn. We'll be right back. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm laughing because something just happened while we were on commercial. This whole group is hilarious. Let me just say that. Everyone having everyone together. So we're gonna bring back Harrison Tuttle, who is the executive director of Black Lives Matters PAC here in Rhode Island, and Senator Tiara Mack, who is my senator in District 6 of Rhode Island. And let me just say this. This must be like Christmas on June 1st. Like seriously for me, like to have both of you on the same show. To have my little sister and my baby brother, that's just like, yay, wonderful, you know. So happy Pride. I'm gonna say that again. But we were talking, Tiara. I was talking with Tiara, and I know Harrison. I watched Harrison's face on the screen on backstage, and he was like, "Dang, I want to jump in." He was like, wanted to hit unmute so many times. But we were talking about community and how community comes together. And one thing I will say that you had said in your speech on that day about Washington Park is, you know, something. Again, like you talked about how we come together for legislative decisions, but also you kind of hit upon how in Washington Park we kind of look out for each other. And you know, I've been fortunate enough to grow up on a street in Washington Park where on the right side of me, the woman who was our lunch lady and used to put 50 cents in our trays every day. She still lives in her house. And on the other side of me, on the left side of me, the family that we share a driveway with, that family still owns that house. His son now has the house, but his family still owns the house. Across the street, the family that still lives there, even the people that we used to have problems with, their family still owns that house. And one thing I appreciate is if something happens at one of our houses, we're able to look out for. A young man across the street just moved in on the first floor. Today I woke up, he saw my grass was too high in my front lawn. He cut my grass in the front, but then I didn't even ask, without asking, he went to my backyard and cut the grass in my backyard and cut the weeds on my backyard. That community, I've been fortunate and blessed in Washington Park. And Washington Park is a section of the South Side where in a way, I kind of grew up, like I tell people, I didn't grow up completely in poverty, even though my mother, my sister, and I shared a room. We had my grandmother's house, but I had a neighborhood. I grew up in a neighborhood. Mm-hmm. We knew each other. It still is that. So, how do we get that back? That's my question. How do we get that back in communities? Harrison.
Oh, yeah. So I think it starts with resources. I think ultimately a lot of our issues in our community comes from systemic issues that have impoverished our communities for decades, for hundreds of years in different ways, right? But naturally, humans are people that like other people and that they like to commune. The idea that, you know, people don't like other people and don't want to work together to find strategies is just such a myth that I think, you know, we can trace that all the way back to our current economy, right? Our current economic structure, where it's always, you know, try to like one up each other to secure more of a financial stability, right? And so, you know, really it's about taking care of one another, creating a environment in which people feel safe, people feel respected. And we start to do that by providing people resources to where they feel comfortable and they feel like they're at home.
Senator Mack, I got a question. What resources do you think that the state can unlock people for people in Providence that are dealing with gun violence, not just in Providence, but around the state, because also Pawtucket has had their issues with recent gun violence as well?
Yeah, I think it comes down to feeling like there are enough resources. A lot of the gun violence happened if you reach 25 years old. Those are young people who should feel like they have adults in their life that they can turn to, and trusted mentors that they feel like can guide them. We need more people in our community, mentors, and who can be community leaders. We need more affordable housing. A lot of the issues come from lack of affordable housing and lack of quality affordable housing. People don't feel like the communities where their grandparents and their parents grew up are places where they have access to opportunities for growth and good careers and good lives for the next couple of decades. We need to build that sense of, this is somewhere that I can not only live, but somewhere that I can also thrive in. And it comes with investing in our public infrastructure, investing in education and housing, in well-paying jobs, in a green and livable future, and making sure that no one feels like the environmental catastrophes that are happening are directly impacting their health or their livelihood or their home cost. So there are lots of different ways that we can address these problems. And I think it just comes down to having the right people in positions of power to really advocate for what the community is asking for, because the community is speaking loud enough. We just don't have enough ears listening.
Right. Sorry about that if I jumped out, guys. Somebody was trying to call my phone. It's the my goodness, when people see you trying to call you on your phone. Sometimes it's kind of like, oh, you're live. So, can I be on your live? Well, what, you're calling my phone, you just interrupted my live. Maybe you should have thought about that before you called, because now I have a problem because you interrupted my live. You knew I was live. Yes, I'm talking to you, my friends. I'm live. Live. I will call you out. You know me. You wouldn't be my friend if you didn't know. Anyway, with that said, um, uh, Tiara, I'm going to
Yeah.
start this question with you. You are the first, this is directed towards you. You are the first openly queer Black woman to serve as state senator in Rhode Island. Do you feel this puts a lot of pressure on you to be a role model for the queer community, the Black community, and women at the same
time? Yes and no. I wake up every day and I'm still like shocked when I see first queer Black, like Rhode Island elected official woman. But also it's so freeing to not have a blueprint to follow. I get to lead boldly and bravely without any expectations, and I get to set the standard for what it looks like to lead authentically, unapologetically, and with a vision that is focused on justice and liberation, not only for my Black identities, but for my queer identities, and also honors my formerly low income status. And so I think it's scary, and it's really, really, really great and beautiful that there are no rules that I have to follow.
Okay. And I really wanted to ask this question. I know we're a little bit over time. Those of you watching, I'm sorry that I'm a little over time. And Chris, my technical person, I'm so sorry I'm over time, baby. So sorry. I love you. Don't make me look bad. Like, Ken, we're over time. Okay, I know you're already pulling out your hair, so it's okay. But anyway, historically, the LGBTQIA plus Black community leaders stay in their closet or took on behind the scene roles in the fight for civil rights. For example, Bayard Rustin, who I've had the privilege of reading his book, and if anybody has not had the privilege of reading his book, I will definitely go back in the comments later and put a link for his book. You should read his book. It is very inspiring. And also my pastor and my first gentleman of my church, my pastor was actually, every year he does the Bayard Rustin breakfast in April. And I had the privilege of being able to be invited to that. Unfortunately, I could not attend this year. However, it was, it's from reading about it and looking at the past highlights of it, it's a good breakfast. He did a lot of work in the 40s and 50s, but because of his sexual orientation, Bayard was not mentioned. And because we would have not had the Million Man March, we would not have the March on Washington if it wasn't for Bayard Rustin. How do we encourage queer Black people to take on the role of activists with such a jaded history? How do we encourage Black people or women or gay people, gay, bisexual, lesbian? We have jaded histories where people put us behind the scenes. Because
Yeah.
Harrison, I'll start with you with that question.
Well, coming from someone who is straight, I can only speak on just empowerment of people in general,
Right.
specifically our people. And I think it would be unfair for me to speak on a community that I'm not a part of, even though I support. Right? I think what we're seeing in this generation, specifically the quote Gen Z era, which is really 18 through 25, and any ages younger than that now, is we're really starting to see people speak up for themselves and be able to call out injustices in which prior generations were sometimes uncomfortable to do, right? And I think that, as that continues, as social media grows, we have to acknowledge that there are some bad things that happen on social media when it comes to misinformation, when it comes to, mental health being affected, but also recognize that it is an amazing way to spread love and to educate people so that people can become, leaders in our communities and people that support our communities. You don't have to be a leader in our community. You don't have to be in the speeches. Just support one another. Be a member of your neighborhood, your community, and that's really how we're going to be able to feel empowered as people, as if we empower ourselves.
Right. That's right. Tiara, same question. How do we encourage queer Black people, period, women, all? How do we encourage them, encourage our people to take on roles of activism, and or even run for political office with such a jaded history? Because
And it's so hard because the right answer is that we shouldn't have to take on these roles. The right answer is that we should be allowed to heal and experience the trauma and recover from the trauma without having to actively work and labor through our own liberation. That is the truth. The reality is that every single day we have to get up and be stronger than strong. The strongest people should not have to deal with the issues that Black, queer, Indigenous, and brown people have to go through. The reality is the strongest of our Black, queer, trans siblings and community should not have to fight the battles that they fight. But the reality is those are the battles that we have to fight every single day. And even the strongest succumb to fatigue and exhaustion and self-doubt. And I think the powerful thing is that we are fighting for a world that doesn't yet exist. And I am the forever optimist. I believe I will live in the world that I'm fighting for today. Whether or not it means I am in a retirement home, sipping my mimosas with my 10 best friends and partner, and I'm 80 years old, I firmly believe that I will be able to enjoy the world that I'm fighting for. And that's what keeps me going. And that is a strength that not everyone should have, that no one should have, and that I honestly fight the hardest for every single day. And so I think it's important for us to recognize that it is not our fight, yet we have to take it up. And it's heartbreaking, and it's beautiful, and it's terrifying. And we have to, if we want to see and experience that world, we have to fight our hardest now. And that's not everyone, and it shouldn't be everyone. And for those of us that do take it up, it's our burden. For those of us who can't take it up and who are here to support it, I hope that they get to see that world as well, because we are all equally deserving of living in that world.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yep, both of you are absolutely right. Like I said, we're going to do final thoughts in 1 second, and but from reading, about people like Bayard Rustin, and and learning more about my favorite poet ever is Langston Hughes. I don't think that growing up and especially growing up here in Providence and in the school system, we weren't really exposed. And when you did know something about Black history, I remember myself being kicked out of class for speaking up about Marcus Garvey. The teacher really didn't know too much about Marcus Garvey, and the teacher said, "Well, you know what? You can get out of class." And I continually got kicked out of class because I told the teacher about, hey, Marcus Garvey was the father of Black nationalism, and basically, going down that line, and there would be no Malcolm X, or or no James Baldwin, or no Dr. King, or even Muhammad Ali, if you didn't have someone like a Marcus Garvey. So to explain something like that, or try to opinionate something like that during the time was taboo. But with all that said, I'm so upset that this hour has been overtimed. Because I love talking to the two of you. I genuinely do. Anytime I see the two of you, either out in public or even a phone call, whatever, I genuinely like talking to the two of you. But we're going to go into final thoughts. And we're going to start with Senator Tiara Mack for final thoughts. And then we'll go right to Harrison. So it's, instead of me announcing Harrison, so we're going to go Senator Mack, Executive Director Tuttle, Tuttle, and then host DBC, Beyonce. Okay? And
Yes.
So shoot away, Senator Mack. Go.
Okay, well, I'm really excited. One, to have kicked off my Pride Month with some really great and empowering Blackness. I think queerness and Blackness are inherently twined, and if we ever have any conversations about queer liberation, they need to be intrinsically tied to Black liberation. So it's great to join you, Dion, my brother and constituent, and Harrison, who I also now consider a little brother, and been so grateful to work with in these last couple of months. And the work continues. The work is hard. It is long, but we are working our tails off now so that we can rest in the future. Because I firmly believe that in a couple of years, 10, 15, 20, hopefully not 30, me, you, and Harrison will be drinking and kikiing over how we worked when we were so young, fresh-faced. But thank you for this time, and I hope that we can continue to honor Pride Month and some Black history with Juneteenth, with more excellent Blackness that Providence has to offer.
Yeah, I relay the same thing that Senator Mack just said. I'm so happy and really honored to not only be on a show like yours, Dion, but also be considered a brother to the both of you. I think that we all do our work, and we all got into this work for different reasons, but with the same goal in mind. And anybody who ever gets involved in this work must understand that there is no Black liberation without queer liberation. And if that is a problem for anybody, then they're not in the right work. So I just want to say that, like I said, I'm super excited to be here. I love talking to the both of you and working with the both of you. And I can't wait to see both of you this week.
Yes, I can't wait to see both of you on this week. So before I give my final thoughts, I just want to say this, and I want to read this. We have we have the flag raising coming up. I want to give people the details of the flag raising. I want to make sure everyone is hearing, and I hope we restream this portion right here. Don't get me wrong, I love what Senator Mack and Executive Director Tuttle have said. But I just want to make sure everybody gets this about the flag raising, because this flag raising is so important. It's so important with there not being anything else in the city of Providence for Pride. And I really would love for everyone to come out to this. But there are details on Facebook for the events. We have posted about the event. We're going to be at Biltmore Park, right across from the Biltmore Hotel, which is now the Graduate for those of you newcomers here in Rhode Island. But it's the Biltmore. and then or the graduate right across. I'm going to be right there in that park. We're going to have COVID vaccine giving. We're going to have COVID testing. We're going to have HIV testing as well. The COVID testing and the vaccines are coming from the Rhode Island National Guard, and the HIV testing is coming from AIDS Care Ocean State, which I'm truly, truly thankful for. Among other healthcare providers are going to be there, and other community organizations are going to be there. I'm so excited for Friday, and I hope all of you can come out and celebrate. But also, I'm excited because on the 15th of June also is going to be the Juneteenth celebration of raising the flag for Black and Brown people. For those of you who don't know who Juneteenth is June 19th, 1965 was the last day where the final slaves in Texas were freed, and we celebrate that day on a joyous occasion for physical bondage should be broken from Black Americans across this country. So that day is also important, and I can't wait to celebrate that day and celebrate even on Juneteenth. But I do have some final thoughts. This month, June, is normally one big celebration. It's normally where we pull out the streamers, we pull out the balloons, or we have the confetti ready to pop. We put off the fireworks. But with recent events, we realize we can't really celebrate because there hasn't been any true liberation for when it comes to people who are Black and Brown or people who are queer, people who are transgender. We have lost already this year many Black and Brown people to gun violence. We have lost so many young Black people to police violence. We have lost many transgender siblings and non-binary siblings to senseless violence. Let us take June as Pride Month, but not just Pride Month, as Black Liberation Month as well, to reflect and know that we still have work to do. But also at the same time, we celebrate. We celebrate their lives because their lives are not in vain. And let it know it is not to be vain. Let us keep their names forever at the lips of our mouth. Let it always be in our heart, and let it always be in our mind. With all that said, happy Pride Month. Happy Black and Brown Liberation Month. May we find ways, to, like my friend Harrison Tuttle said, to make sure that Black liberation happens without queer liberation. But also, queer liberation, like Ken Barber said, doesn't happen without Black liberation. Until next time, good night, Rhode Island.